You mentioned an interesting point that people don't really talk about so often in academia, which is you've been to many places, but you've also got rejected to a couple of places, right? You wanted to go to DKFZ, you wanted to go to a couple of different PhDs, and it just didn't work out. Maybe the PI found someone else who was a better fit. Maybe the program didn't like your profile for whatever reason. But rejections in academia are so common, even if you're an excellent candidate, even if your GPA is great, even if you have research experience, it still happens a lot and it's hard to deal with it. So can you maybe tell me, how was it for you to get a rejection and then have a plan B and adapt to that? How did you handle that and in the end found what you wanted to do in that sea of applications?
Of course. Well, I have to say, when I first got rejected, I was heartbroken. I cried and cried and cried and cried. I was like, okay, what is wrong? Like, am I not good enough for you? Like, I really took it to heart, you know? But then after like 200 rejections, I was fine. I have to say, like, no, it's a really, you have to get used to it. It's not always about you. I learned that there are so many factors that play a role in this hiring process. And for me, the things have always turned out for the best. You know, I was hoping for one path and I would have something in mind, and then I would be really disappointed if it didn't work out. But then, you know, I just kind of shifted my perspective, opened up my horizons a little bit, and oh, there was another opportunity right next to it, you know, and the things were way better than I would have ever imagined, you know. So yeah, when I was always a straight A student, and I was always with the highest GPA, the best, you know, the best in this, the best in that. And when I got rejected for the first time, it was really like terrible. I got rejected for the first time, and I was like, oh my god, you know, like panicked. But then when I was applying for my PhD, you know how it is. You usually do not apply to just one position, or at least I don't. I applied to a couple of them. And you know, I was going through these interviews and I was really getting close to getting to the KFZ. And I even got one position actually. But the PI at that time, she told me that she doesn't know anything about the project, that I would be really on my own, and that, you know, she's not sure whether it would be feasible in the end. Like, so I would be on my own. And I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn from someone. So it wasn't really for me. So I ended up rejecting that. But later on, I was really fixated on working in cancer, and I was applying to strictly cancer working labs, yeah. And I ended up getting rejected a lot, and I realized that it's just the way it is. I mean, you're not a fit for them, or maybe they sometimes even advertise certain position which has already been internally filled, or for example, you as a foreign student sometimes might not have like a privilege like students that are from that country. And there's also, of course, me needing visa. Very few people want to deal with that because it is so complicated. I was just talking about that yesterday with my colleagues, that it's a form of discrimination sometimes, that, you know, they pick up students that do not need visa, even that the, you know, the student that also applied who might need visa is maybe a little bit better, just so they don't go through hassle of getting visa, because it's really, you know, frustrating sometimes. But yeah, what I told myself always was like, okay, fine, this didn't work out. Let's go to the next one. Let's see what there is, you know? And then I realized that, for example, interviews are not just one-way street. They're two-way street. I'm interviewing you as much as you're interviewing me. Like, okay, you're looking for a good fit for your lab, but I'm also looking for a good fit for me. Like, is this environment that I would thrive in? Do I like you as a mentor? Do I think you would be like what I need? Because not all students are the same. Some need a little bit more control. Some need, you know, to feel free. Some, you know, it's different. So it has to be really a match. And once I realized that, I felt really relieved. You know, I stopped taking it personally. It's not. It's just the way things work. And even, you know, even now, I guess, like if you apply for anything, you will be rejected. It's okay. Just, you know, I think it's important not to give up. But of course, I made mistakes while I was applying for my PhD. And for example, I mean, now after years, I would do certain things differently. And then I was also like, I'm always thinking, like, when I see some of your posts on LinkedIn, like, yeah, why didn't I do this? Like, it's so like black and white to me when I read it somewhere, but I never thought of it. And I'm like, I wish I read this like 5 years ago.
Well, I'm
you know?
happy. I'm happy you're seeing my posts that way. I think one thing that's super important and that I've seen countless times that you just mentioned is just taking rejection personally. And I think for people who are going into academia, it's a little harder than for other people. And the reason I think that it's because the profile of people who go to do a master's and a PhD and a postdoc, they are the students who always got told they are the best, right? You're the best. You're
Mhm.
so smart. How can you think so fast? How do you even get such good grades? You don't even study. When do you even study? And then all of a sudden you shift from that to, sorry, your application was great, but we decided to go through with another candidate. But do not despair. Your candidacy was very strong, and try somewhere else. And you're just listening to that, and your heart is breaking in half.
Yes.
So I had a couple of acquaintances, amazing students, uh, super high GPAs, if that's one indicator, won competitions in biology. Some of them won Olympiads, and one of them got rejected from a master's program. And I couldn't understand how personally he took it. Like, we had this conversation about him not feeling good enough. Am I not good enough for this program? Uh, I'm just a I'm just a nobody. Like, all this negative self-hate talk. When in reality, if you just back off a little bit and you try to distance yourself a little bit emotionally, and you take a look at the numbers, how many people did they accept to this program? 12. How many applications did they get? 800. So out of those 800, because it's a super selective program, probably half of them are all amazing students, and it's a global program, so everybody applies. Everybody from around the world can apply. So you get the best of the best applications. So everybody's in the top. Everybody has good GPA. Everybody has good recommendations. Everybody has good cover letters, CVs, everything. So then the power to discriminate between students gets down. And I was even told by one committee member who was deciding for these selective programs, oh, in the end, you just you go with your gut feeling. One of our colleagues, he likes musicians, so if he sees that if you're a musician, he might give you an advantage. So when you think about it, really, if you were in those shoes of someone who's selecting, and you had all these top students, like 200 of them, how would you decide? Probably it wouldn't be personal. It wouldn't be, this person is not worthy or not good enough. It would be just, I don't know what to do. This one sounds more interesting a little bit to me, right? And
Yeah, or
that's how
they did
people in
two
the end.
Western bloods more than you, and you're like, oh yeah, that that
I
they
don't
have
know.
more experience.
Yeah, it's just the element of randomness. Like, okay, maybe someone who has more experience in this particular technique would fit better in my lab because they're going to be doing it anyway. So I have no other discriminatory factors to go over it. So I think it's to conclude this rant, it's just very important to back off a little bit and understand that it's just a numbers game. And even if you're at your very best and your application's great, it can get rejected because of some randomness, because somebody likes musicians, and it's just because there's so many candidates.